Lot happened this weekend. A lot of information that the Arizona Cardinals can now use to further their head coaching search. What did we learn this weekend? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Alex Clancy here. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. So much to talk about today still. We are getting closer and closer. 2 eliminated teams freeze up 2 of the top 5 candidates the Arizona Cardinals are reportedly going after for their head coaching vacancy. And we learned a lot about not only those guys, but also Klint Kubiak this weekend. So what did we learn? That's what this entire show is going to be. I'm going to finish with Vance Joseph. That's a trickier one, but it's very clear what we learned. Mike LaFleur and Chris Shula, one good, one not great. Chris Shula may have coached himself out of a head coaching gig, even if there was an outside chance that he would get an offer this cycle. But listen, Klint Kubiak stole the show. On Friday of last week, when I did the what to look for this weekend, Klint Kubiak and his adjustments. Okay, so my biggest knock on Klint Kubiak, and it's not a knock like, oh, you're a bad OC. Not even 0.01%. But the wariness surrounding Klint Kubiak being the next Arizona Cardinals head coach potentially, even though I know that's an outside shot, was he was able to execute with 1 wide receiver and 2 running backs. Nobody else was any part of that offense. Everybody else was a far distant second. And that's what we've, looked at Drew Petzing and said, hey, why can't you get more than a tight end and a receiver involved with the offense without a run game, with Marvin Michael Wilson on the field with Trey McBride? How is that possible? Klint Kubiak doubled down on that and said, you know what? I'm going to throw the ball at JSN 15 times a game. Stop it. I dare you. I dare you to stop it. So last night or yesterday afternoon, against the defense that is very Jekyll and Hyde this year, they got a little pressure on Sam Darnold, but it wasn't much. That offensive line is very good. Gray Zabel played very well. Surprise, surprise. Without one of their 2 running backs, he completely changed how they called the offense. And Kenneth Walker was obviously the focal point. He had over 20 touches and over 110 all-purpose yards. JSN got his. He had 7 for over 100 and a touchdown in the first half. They got Cooper Kupp involved. They got Rashid Shaheed involved. It was one play, but it was a really big 51-yard throw and catch. AJ Barner got a little involved. Jake Bobo caught a touchdown. Like, I'm not saying that I've watched every second of Seahawks football. I've seen enough. And what I saw this past, 60 minutes was the best coordinated football he's called all year. And listen, if I'm wrong, if it's close, that's fine. That looked like a different offense because Zach Charbonnet was out, so he had to adjust. And he adjusted on the most grandiose stage that he's seen so far this year against a division rival who knows him and Sean McVay and all the things. And yeah, some of those points were off of a muffed punt. They gave a very short field, sure. But I've never been more okay with Klint Kubiak being the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals as I was yesterday. There's a couple things, though, and this isn't to put a wet blanket on. He called a great game. And you know that he called the game because he's the offensive coordinator and he's the only one that calls the plays, unlike the next person we're going to be talking about. There's a couple things that were going for him. One, they got a really good defense. Matt Stafford carved them up for a couple quarters there, but they've got a really good defense. And one of those touchdowns was sparked by one of the most idiotic taunting calls I've ever heard. I've ever seen. When you get a ref saying multiple times, okay, that's enough. Okay, that's enough, where there wouldn't be an okay, that's enough during the regular season. He gave Riq Woolen 2 or 3 opportunities to stop talking, and he didn't. So 4th and 12 turned into first down, turned into a Puka Nacua touchdown on Riq Woolen's head. But by and large, that's a very good defense. That could be the most complete defense in football. And Klint Kubiak has that at his advantage. A lot of 3 and outs, a lot more opportunities, better field position. Yes, the muffed punt return. Yeah, easy points, sure. Just part of the game. I learned the most from Klint Kubiak this past weekend. The intestinal fortitude, the spraying it around the field, and the usage of Kenneth Walker. A+. A+. So then when you pivot it to look at the Arizona Cardinals, can he do that here? Maybe he brings Kenneth Walker here with him. Who knows? Especially if they win the Super Bowl. If they win the Super Bowl, if Seattle wins the Super Bowl, that's all bets are off for guys who are free agents. Sometimes it's just like, I'm not saying this is the best for the Cardinals, but like people just want to go make the most money they can after winning a Super Bowl at times. And I'm not talking about, the Cardinals paying Kenneth Walker to come here. That's not what I mean. But, free agency is weird after a team wins a Super Bowl. For the Cardinals, that offense that we saw yesterday can translate. It's a weird thing when your best offensive player is your tight end. It's not uncircumventable. It's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing. The offense is completely different when you run it through a guy who predominantly lines up next to the offensive line or in the slot. I know they move Trey McBride around a lot, but like when you have the best tight end in football, you've got to cater differently. And AJ Barner, while he had flashes, he was a fantasy darling for, a couple weeks early on to the middle of the season. He's not Trey McBride. So can that offense work? I watched last night. It's like, I know JSN is significantly better than any receiver that the Cardinals have. But can he turn Marvin Harrison Jr. into 80% of JSN in his scheme while feeding Trey McBride, while having a competent run game? It's difficult with these things because, I know injuries are an excuse for sure. But when it comes to a run-first offense, your 2 best running backs get hurt in the first month of the season, it changes everything. It changes everything. So it's not an indictment on Drew Petzing in this respect. It's more they were just in survival mode after the first month. Can Klint Kubiak balance out an offense and allow Jacoby Brissett, whoever's quarterback, most likely Jacoby Brissett in 2026, to get the target share necessary to be able to have 3 pass catchers eat? When he was in New Orleans, we saw a little bit of this. Quarterback play wasn't fantastic. But by and large, I was most impressed by Klint Kubiak. And at this point, I'm good if they were to choose him. I have a really good feeling that it's going to be the Raiders. First overall pick, all the money, no state income tax, and you can grow and learn as a head coach with a rookie quarterback. Makes the most sense. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. What about Mike LaFleur and Chris Shula? Not as good. Discuss it next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Bink Prize Picks. So I love Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. And with the big game almost here, there's no better way to get in on the action and locked into every moment than with Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where it always feels good to be right. With football season coming down to its final stretch, now is the perfect time to close it out strong. Prize Picks makes watching the game even more exciting by letting you build simple lineups around the player projections, no drafts, no waiting, just football action all the way through the playoffs. All you have to do is pick 2 to 6 player projections and pick more or less That's it. And my favorite feature here is the early payouts feature, where you can cash out if a player gets off to a hot start. Like, you don't have to wait until all of the entire entry is finished to make some cheese. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is also brought to you by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moment that matters, and Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading invoice significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right. Locked On Cardinals, your team every single dang day. Go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Become an everydayer. The Everydayer Club, man. It's fun. Ad-free content, members only, Discord group. We're going to be having conversations all off season. I'm in the Discord group. Come join me. It's just a fun way to stay connected, while you're not watching me or hearing me spew things out of my big dumb face. So, Mike LaFleur, Chris Shula. I don't know about Mike LaFleur. Do you? I say this somewhat jokingly, and also the other part of somewhat out of 100, not jokingly. We don't know what he is as a play caller. We don't know. He did it with the Jets with terrible quarterback play. He didn't do it with Kyle Shanahan, and he also is not doing it with Sean McVay. Of course, he's got a say in play calls, of course. But when you're not the predominant play caller, to me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And you want to look at the play calling yesterday? Not Sean McVay's best output. Not great, Bob. Decided to not take points, which was a decision, okay? The play call after, not fantastic. They were in some precarious situations where if they would have just run the ball, I think they would have put themselves in a better spot. They get pass happy, and rightfully so. I mean, Matt Stafford's the MVP. He's 100% the MVP in my book. But what do we know more now about Mike LaFleur than we did? Nada. He is the biggest unknown in this coaching cycle. He is the biggest unknown. He's been around good guys. He's been around very smart people, which, of course, is a positive. It's like, yeah, when it comes to this, it's like, would you rather have a guy who's called plays and this isn't like he's coming right from the Jets to take the Cardinals job. He's been around greatness. And Kyle Shanahan, listen, he's a great play caller, great offense. Okay. That's all that really matters. I don't care about the win-loss. I don't care about Super Bowls, whatever. Sean McVay, Super Bowl winner, has been twice, almost got to a third if a punt returner didn't muff a punt return catch. That was pretty much the deciding factor of the game. So, of course, it's a positive that he's been around those dudes, and it will 100% rub off on him at some point when he becomes a head coach. Do you want to take that risk? Well, look at the offense he's a part of. Look at the offense. He doesn't call the plays. So you want to bring in a first-time head coach to call plays for the first time since whatever mess there was in East Rutherford and lead a team coming off of a 3-14 season, a bleak 2026 outlook and just be like, all right, that sounds good. It could work handsomely. Like I've said, like this whole cycle with first time, what will be first time head coaches, you're going to find a Liam Cohen and a Mike McDonald in the group. You just got to be the ones to find them. You got to be the one to grab it. So if Mike LaFleur is the next Liam Cohen, cool, works. It's so difficult to find coordinators that are good head coaches. It's a tall task to come into Arizona, one of the most dysfunctional organizations out there. Michael Bidwell is an owner. No future plan for quarterback at this point. Coming off one of the most injury-riddled seasons in the history of football. And just walk into the NFC West, be like, all right, open for business. Cynical thought process? Of course. Easy for me to say the unknown won't happen? Sure. That's where sports debates started. It's like, that's definitely not going to happen. Well, I'll tell you what, most things don't happen. Most things that people predict don't happen. So you bring Mike Shula in, and he's one of the quote-unquote finalists. I don't think national media knows any more than we do. Like, not me specifically, but the insiders here, like, I don't think anybody knows. Because they don't tell anybody. They're playing hide and seek with their thought process, like they have the key to Fort Knox or something. It's the I don't even know. That doesn't even make sense. So I don't know. TBD. Learn nothing. Sean McVay's calling the plays. That's all I got to say about that. Chris Shula, not great. Now, to his credit, that defense is, I think I saw the second cheapest contract-wise defense in football. Bottom 5. Their secondary especially. So you could look at this in one of two ways. One, he did an incredible job with what was given to him, and the front 7 really just, kept them in games defensively. Or you could say he coached himself out of a job in the last 2 months. And I don't know which one it is. What I do know is Sam Darnold pretty much did what he wanted yesterday. Pocket was clean for the majority of it. Gray Zabel played very well. I don't know if I mentioned that yet. But I don't know anything else about Chris Shula. Now, I think Chris Shula is the odd man out. I mean, it's the Bills and the Raiders and the Browns and the Cardinals. I don't think Chris Shula is on anybody's short list, personally. So I don't think it really matters, and I don't think the Cardinals are looking at him. Two very different outcomes in what was a one-score game at the end. Klint Kubiak shined. Mike LaFleur, I genuinely have no idea. But if you say Klint Kubiak's the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, and he's going to call plays, be like, well, that's scary, but we're seeing what he's done as the sole play caller. With arguably less talent than Sean McVay and Mike LaFleur? Arguably? I don't know. JS he's got less talent. You got Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and 2 good backs with the Rams. It's close. But that offense, Klint Kubiak's offense, without Zach Charbonnet, I think addition by subtraction helped them yesterday. And I'm not saying Zach Charbonnet is a bad back at all. It allowed more fluidity. And we saw it. Mike LaFleur, Chris Shula, not the best showing. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Vance Joseph may have had the most solid conference championship game of all of the coordinators. What does that mean? And does that make Michael Bidwell's head snap and be like, oh, he's our man? We'll discuss it next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. So listen, I use Indeed and have used Indeed for a long time. And if you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important it is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire somebody for this show, I go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. And instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posts directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than a non-sponsored job. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results. Use Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Vance. Oh, Vance Joseph. Let's just talk about the first half. Maybe the strongest showing of any coordinator on this list. If Brock Osweiler, if Jared Stidham didn't, I think I can only describe it as if I were in for one play for the Broncos this past game, that's what I would have done. Run for my life, throw the ball backwards, and get saved by a whistle with intentional grounding, and it ended up being, backwards pass. That resulted in points. If that didn't happen, Broncos could have won this game. They shut this offense of the Patriots down. Ramondre had an okay game. Stephon Diggs had a couple catches here and there. But this defense did everything necessary to yield a victory for the Denver Broncos. And then they decided to turn the snow globe on, and then everything went to bleep. So you don't put this loss on Vance Joseph. It is close between Klint Kubiak and Vance Joseph for who had the best showing. I think the biggest thing with Vance Joseph is Michael Bidwell could very well look at what Vance Joseph is doing with a top 3 defense talent-wise and say, oh, he can do that with the Cardinals too. Mikey, it's not the same. Mikey, it's not the same. I just don't know if what Vance Joseph does will translate to what the roster looks like is currently constructed. That's not to say the Cardinals don't have talent on this team. We've talked about this ad nauseum. They've got talent and very young talent in very, very important positions. But there's not a Pat Surtain on this team. There's not a Nick Bonito on this team. Hell, there's probably not a Zach Allen on this team. What the Denver Broncos are, one unified front of 11 dudes all playing in synchronicity. And if Vance Joseph turned this defense into that, may not be as boring of a hire as people have been screaming about. I think at this point, though, and I think this is kind of the same thing with Kyler Murray, I think time's passed. Good, bad, indifferent, time's passed. But when some out there have VJ as the odds-on favorite to take the Cardinals job, as of 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, I know things change. Sure. Every couple days things change in this 24/7 news cycle we live in now. I just don't think it's the right choice now. This isn't a Monty Ossenford trying to save his job thing. I don't think. I can't remember who it was, a national media member. I think it might have been Coward, said that, GMs don't get fired as much as head coaches do. So I don't think we're going to see Monty go anywhere for a while. So this is more about which coach can be a difference maker. Not which coach can get to 6 wins this year. Not which coach can lead a young quarterback most likely in 2027 unless they do something crazy and trade for a vet. This is about which head coach, which human being could be a difference maker for this team, which will be a difference maker for this team next year. It's not culture anymore. It's X's and O's. It's between the lines. Jonathan Gannon did a bang-up job outside the lines. Like him, don't like him, whatever. It's just true. Now you need a guy, a wunderkind, to come in and change the landscape of the Cardinals' win-loss record. That's really all that matters. That's what mattered last year. It's what matters every year. Come on. You know what I mean. But I just don't know if Vance Joseph, who can get the Cardinals to 6 wins next year or 7 wins next year, is enough when there's somebody out there who could have them in double-digit wins in 2 years. Both are scary. One is scary, boring. One is scary, no safety net. And Michael Bidwell and Monty Osborne need to figure out who the hell that is. But as we watched this past weekend, and as I'm hearing, and as we're hearing that Mike LaFleur is on a short list. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe bleep. When you bring in a guy whose only offensive coordinator sole play calling responsibilities were with Robert Saleh and the Jets when they couldn't score points. I know we didn't have a quarterback. I just don't know if you go full scary mode, which is what that would be, that it's the right choice. I guess none of us are going to know until a couple years from now. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.